I just thank you so much for the opportunity to come here and speak today. I'm actually both honored and humbled, quite honestly, to be here. It's been a while since I've been back on campus. I do come back every now and then to do some recruiting and break the campus door. But anyway, it really just brings back fond memories every time I come back. So I thank you for having me here. This isn't going to be your typical keynote speech. So if you were wanting me to come up here and do a presentation on numbers and financials, you're in the wrong place. It's not going to be about that. I actually really don't like to do presentations, believe it or not. I like to interact with people so much better. I like to engage, I like to have dialogue, and I like to hear what's on your mind. And quite honestly, I find that to me to be much more beneficial to me and to you because we can speak very freely and keep it real. Does that sound okay for everybody? Okay. So first I want to start to tell you a little bit about myself, and it'll give you a sense of who I am and how I came about to be in this position that I'm in today, and also tell you a little bit about the challenges that I've faced coming up through my career. So first, I grew up in San Bernardino, California. So does anybody, have you heard of San Bernardino? Anybody? Nobody? Now before the terrorist attacks there, did anybody hear about San Bernardino? Probably not. San Bernardino is about 60 miles southeast of LA. And it's primarily a service-oriented community. So it has hospitals, schools, there's a former military base there, and banks. So there's not a lot of business or industry. And if you wanted to get to LA to actually go to work, even though it's only 65 miles, it takes you about 3 hours to get there if you wake up at 6 a.m. So that's not what a lot of people do, but a lot of people do that to get through the traffic through LA. My father was in the Air Force. He was a career serviceman. And my mother was a registered nurse. And so I really didn't have a lot of exposure to those things in the business world. Or, as a matter of fact, to higher education. And there's a lot of colleges and universities in California, but quite honestly, that's not what I was exposed to. In fact, I was the first in my family to attend and graduate from college. So early on, though, in high school, I noticed that I had an affinity for finance. Now, I say affinity versus a passion because I really didn't know what it was. All I knew was that any time that I was in a club or in student council, I either always volunteered or was always elected to be the treasurer, or in student council we called it the governor of finance to make it sound real official, but that was it. So my only view of real world finance was what I saw in a bank, at the bank teller level. So I said, great, I'll go to college to be a bank teller. What did I know? Well, as you can imagine, I found there was a lot more to finance than just being a bank teller. So I chose to attend Florida A&M University to get my undergraduate degree. And I chose Florida A&M for a couple reasons. One, the dean of the school called me and said, hey, we want you to come down to Florida A&M and be part of the cream of the crop. And she talked about how you had the opportunity to intern with major corporations, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies, 3 times before you graduated and make some real money. And so for a 17-year-old who worked at the local Bob's Big Boy, that sounded kind of inviting, to be able to attend a school where I could also get that kind of experience. The second reason that I chose to attend Florida A&M was because it was an historically black college, or an HBCU. I always wanted to have that sense of belonging and to find myself, if you will. You see, I was adopted. I knew that my biological mother was from Hungary, had immigrated here with her family, and I knew my father was African American, but that's all I knew. And I didn't look like anybody in my family. And so I was adopted by an African American family and had a wonderful life, a great childhood, but I always missed that sense of belonging. I didn't look like anybody. I wanted to feel like I was a part of something. And so that's why I chose to go to an historically black college. And FAMU did just that. Florida A&M did just that. It gave me the confidence personally. I was surrounded by students and my peers who were from everywhere and who made up all kinds of diversity that I really felt like I belonged. But more importantly, it was great for my career because through the internships that I had, I was able to intern in Houston as a construction superintendent. I was able to intern at what was then Continental Bank in the city of Chicago. I was able to intern with American Express in New York City. Real jobs, real things that I could apply and use experience towards my career. So I always knew right away that I needed to get my MBA, and I chose Fuqua after working for 2 years in finance as a financial analyst. Fuqua was great because it was smaller then than it is today, and it had that sense of community. It was built on teamwork and basically the real world. You see, when you're in a job, you don't work by yourself. You work with teams of people. You collaborate in your own function across different functions. And I felt that Fuqua actually provided a great foundation to be able to do that. So the education and experiences that I had both at Florida A&M and at Fuqua really set the stage for my career in finance and for where I am today. So how did I get here? So Katie, if you could cue up the slide. So I'm not sure if you guys have seen this, but it's a slide that I like to show that I believe epitomizes success. I didn't create this slide, and there's a lot of slides out there on the internet, some version of this, but I really love this slide. And whenever I'm thinking about things, I go back to this and thinking about my career. Its depiction of success to me is very accurate, specifically for what I've been through. So in a very simple terms, what people tend to see when they think of someone being successful, they see that top of the iceberg, that quarter, which is called success. What they don't see is how you got there. That's why this is called a success iceberg. Because what you see is about a quarter of what it takes to be successful. The underneath part, the lower part, is what it takes to get there. Persistence or perseverance, as I like to call it. Failure. Failure comes with the territory. Sacrifice. Sacrifice both personally and professionally. Disappointment. Good habits. Hard work. And then dedication, particularly to your own goals, dreams, and aspirations. And so while I've enjoyed a great career in finance and have a great job as CFO of Victoria's Secret, it took all of these things plus some. I faced obstacles and challenges in my climb up the ladder to both my personal and professional life. But while I faced challenges, I have to tell you that I haven't met many people, and particularly women, who haven't had those challenges as well. So yes, I faced opposition. I faced opposition because I was a woman. I faced opposition because I was a mother. I faced opposition as a minority. And believe it or not, because I was introverted. That also has come up in my career. But these are all things that make you what you are and are your inner core. At Florida A&M, they had something called, and I want to walk you through some of the things that happened to me in one of my first jobs. So at Florida A&M, they taught you professional development. And part of that professional development, they brought in executives from these Fortune 100 companies, and you had the opportunity. We had our own news show, so at one point I was the moderator asking them questions. They had receptions, so you learned how to speak, you learned the right questions to ask. And it taught you how to dress. And so when I graduated and went to work for General Foods, who used to be the maker of Jell-O, Maxwell House Coffee, Post cereals, I took what I learned with me. So I thought that's what I was supposed to do. but apparently not everybody thought so. So it seemed very natural to me, because of my grounding at Florida A&M, when I got there as a financial analyst, I said, I'm going to call up the CFO and ask him if he'd have lunch with me. And my team members laughed at me. They're like, okay, yeah, really, right? You know, they don't even know who you are. Well, I always didn't get the first phone call, but sometimes I got the second. And eventually I started having meetings with many executives, touch base meetings, saying, what should I do in my career? I'm starting out, what should I do? And that was a great thing for me. I learned a lot from it. But things started to happen. First, there was the talk that you only got that meeting because you're black. They felt sorry for you. Is this for real? And then when I was invited by the CFO of the company to fly on the corporate jet with him to recruit at my alma mater, that's when I really got popular. Other things started happening. I no longer was invited to have lunch with my team members. There were meetings where my name just got left off of the attendees. I was even accused, believe it or not, of having an affair with the executive. Not true, okay? And while it wasn't everyone, it was still enough people where it hurt. And it bothered me. So I felt extremely isolated. I was frustrated. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't even have anybody to teach me. My own boss was part of that group. And so, but I kept going. I persevered because I said, I think that's the right thing to do. I should be talking to these people and understanding how to get advice. But I cried a lot when I got home. Never in the office. Ladies, never in the office. Go home, you can cry your eyes out, it helps. But I call it perseverance. Failure, sacrifice, disappointment, these are next levels on the iceberg. The next thing that happened was I got my first performance review. And it was bad, really bad. And all of a sudden I was being told I wasn't good enough. I never failed at anything in my life. How could this be happening to me? It wasn't my fault they left me out of those meetings. It wasn't my fault that they didn't explain to me how to do things. I took it all the way up to the CFO. And I said, they're treating me unfairly. How dare they? He didn't care. He said, you're not doing your work. And to be completely honest, he was right. Because at the end of the day, I let all those things impact my work. And because it was a good excuse for me to say, oh, you know, they just don't like me, I'll just do what I need to do and I'll go on home. But I had to figure that out, that, you know what, it wasn't the right thing. And I let my work slip. And so that was the first turnaround for me. It's coming to that realization that it was in my control, and I needed to do something about it. And so I had to first step back and really hear what they were saying. So I knew it wasn't me, but I wasn't working as hard. I wasn't being smart. I wasn't taking the time out that I needed to learn something. And so you heard the term man up. I had to woman up. And I had to get myself together. And what that took was I had to sacrifice. I had to sacrifice my weekend time. I had to sacrifice my time after work. I worked late. And it wasn't FaceTime, believe me. It was work. I was studying like I was in school, going back over my work, not once, not twice, 3 times, to make sure there were no mistakes. And if I worked the weekend, I made sure other people knew. I kind of slipped it in the conversation. Say, hey, I was here this weekend. You know what I saw? You know? But I had to keep asking for help. And I had to be humble. I had to study. I had to watch. So things did start turning around at that company. My next performance review, I met expectations. So not what I like, but you know what? That was good enough to stay in the door. But more than ever, I developed good habits. and a hard work ethic. Asking questions when I didn't understand. Again, checking my work all the time. I eventually got to the point where my work started exceeding expectations. Wow. So much so that the company supported me in getting transferred to their sister company. And because even though I knew that I was turning it around, I needed a fresh start. So I did all that. I worked really hard to change the perception, but at the end of the day, there was too much that went on, and I needed to find a new environment. But from there, it made me more dedicated to my goal. And I wanted to be successful, and I didn't know, quite honestly, again, I didn't have a lot of business exposure, as I mentioned earlier. So to me, being a vice president sounded pretty cool. And I never thought about being a CFO. I really, didn't know that I could be that. But I kept focused, and what I learned was that no one can take my confidence away from me unless I let them. And there were times where I let them. I was told by one of my bosses, "You're not the sharpest knife in the drawer, young lady." What? How can you say that to me? I'm smart. I'm fabulous. I'm amazing. He didn't feel like I was that sharp. But I knew me. I knew I was better. And so every now and then you have to find something that keeps you inspired or keeps you motivated within yourself. It could be a prayer. It could be a quote. It could be an inspirational story that helps you work through times when it feels like you're being kicked around. For me, it was a theme song. So don't laugh, it was a theme song. And it was a song that I could sing to myself full blast when I had a hard day at work. Coming home, nobody could hear me. I was locked up in my car. Of course, I looked silly to the car next to me. But it was my theme song. And a lot of, when this was going on, my kids were really young. So my kids were into The Lion King. Okay, I'm almost embarrassed. Don't laugh at me, I turn right here. But they were into The Lion King. So you guys know about The Lion King, right? Great movie of all time. Well, there's a song in the movie where Simba says, "I just can't wait to be king." Well, that was my theme song. I'm going to be a mighty king, so enemies beware. I'm going to be the main event like no king was before. I'm brushing up on looking down. I'm working on my roar. I can't wait to be king. Sometimes I'd be crying when I sang that. Tears rolling down my face. But by the end of the song, I was smiling. Because that was my song. I was going to be king. I was going to be successful. Because I told myself that my greatest revenge for all those who said I wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer or that I wasn't the best I could be, my greatest revenge would be my success. And so I eventually left Kraft and found my way to Sears, my first job in retail, and boy, that was so much fun. I found my passion. Retail is amazing. It's great to be in the industry, and sometimes I can't believe that they actually pay me to do what I do, because it is so much fun. And after Sears, I worked for Old Navy. I came back and worked for Sears again for a short while, and then I became the CFO for Express, a division of L Brands, formerly Limited Brands. And then after 2 years there, I was promoted to be the CFO of their largest business, their most profitable business, which is Victoria's Secret. So that's my pathway here, and that's how I became CFO of one of the world's greatest brands. And it's a business for women that is run primarily by women. And that makes me so proud. I have been asked many times what it's like to be a minority woman in the C-suite, as you call it. I worked for other companies, and I felt like I was the minority in the C-suite, but at Victoria's Secret, I have to say that I think I get more prejudice because I'm in finance versus anything else, because it is a marketing and merchandising run company. But it's a lot of fun, and I love it. So before I open it up for your questions, because this is the part where we're going to be real here, I want to leave you with some thoughts for your future. First, become the tip of the iceberg by building your foundation and accept that there is going to be some failures. There's going to be some disappointments. And in fact, relish in them and accept them, because in the end, they make you stronger. Second, discover your passion. Do what you love and dedicate yourself to it. It's proven that if you love what you do, success will come. Third, find that theme song. You will be surprised. It may sound silly, but sometimes when the road gets tough, that's what you have to be able to pull yourself up. But it's also there for celebrating as well. Lastly, be humble, but realize that you are in control. You are unique, and you are amazing. Thank you for having me here.